Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa's $2.5 trillion worth of metals and minerals to be mined in the next 100 years provide an opportunity for the country to diversify its economy for the benefit of hundreds of thousands of South Africans. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, Pan-African Capital CE Dr. Iraj Abedian advocates smart value addition with minimal but definite government intervention.
Yeah.
What is he talking about?
Yes, I think that what we've got to realize in South Africa is that we're in a very good position. We sit on metals and minerals worth 18 trillion to 20 trillion rand. And the dollar figure is $2.5 trillion. Trillion. I'm not talking billion, I'm talking trillion. We're into that area. And that is the value of the metals and minerals in the ground as calculated by Citibank. So we're sitting, and it excludes energy minerals. So it excludes our energy coal. So what we're saying is this gives us a 100-year horizon. You know, what other country has got an asset base that can give it an outlook for another 100 years of activity, economic activity, than South Africa? In fact, there isn't. You know, even Australia hasn't got this outlook, hasn't got the same value of metals and minerals in the ground. Russia, which I think came in third, hasn't got that value. So we're sitting on a pretty strong asset. And what Ryhove Abedian is saying, and you know, he's an Iranian, but I think he's probably more South African than many South Africans, is saying let's use this fantastic asset base to diversify our economy. And what you've got to do first is make sure you've got a very slick, efficient mining industry, which we certainly haven't. And what has happened is the legislative framework and the administrative situation with regard to licensing has let us down badly. It sent us backwards. He's saying get that into world-class levels to make sure, you know, every impediment is removed from the mining industry. Because if you get that to peak efficiency, there are unbelievable linkages on either side, and up and down and left and right. Because, you know, a lot of people, and Ryhove Abedian has been saying, people when they talk beneficiation, they start thinking, oh, a jewelry store, or some diamond cutting, or platinum catalysts.
Yes.
Take that out of your mind, he says. You know, let's look at some of the companies we've already got here. And we know that Wadeville, our industrial area down the road from the studio, was a virtual mining workshop, you know, for 50 years. It did very, very well. Now shrinking. If you create that 100-year horizon for your economy, you give huge confidence to the people who are going to supply that industry. You give them confidence that they invest. And then you might not even rely totally on spontaneous business, spontaneous development. Give them a plan and maybe say for the next 3 years, you know, we will assure you that this industry is going to purchase that amount of goods and services from you to enable them to invest. I mean, just look at a company like Bell Equipment. Gets no subsidies. It competes with Caterpillar. It competes with a giant. Here, you know, you had Gary Bell, a 16-year-old apprentice working for, what, 16 rand a week or something, sitting at his father's knee and eventually developing, you know, this business, which is world-class. Now, that is a supply to the mining industry, but it could supply much more. There are many other businesses around like that who, with a good horizon, with a possibility of long-term supply, they can put huge investments into their business, employ a lot of people, and perhaps slight minimal intervention over a period from the government, but just strong vision and firm vision that's not deviated from, will give people the confidence to invest, and there you will get these linkages starting, because people will say, well, the mines require machinery of this kind. Let's start building them, let's start supplying. Not only South Africa, we're sitting here looking north, and we see the Democratic Republic of Congo. Get their politics right there. And here you've got the world's best supply of copper. We know when we look at Chile, we see they're starting to dart around. Their grades of copper starting to deplete. You know, it's just a matter of time before the Central Africa takes over again in copper because of the high grades. We could then link up that need to turn that copper to account with our Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Why finance that activity from London or from New York? We are the best people sitting here in Johannesburg to raise the capital to turn that copper treasure chest to account. So another horizon, what is it going to be, 120 years, 130 years we got here just in this in the Southern African region? Not to talk of the whole of Africa, not to talk of the rest of the world. You know, we could become a major supplier if we start thinking of what goes into mining activities and we start preparing to supply that. You know, even on the laboratory side, you know, they're looking at the samples and things like that. We could do a lot more on the research and development side, so we could have very sort of mundane type of business, and we need that for the people of South Africa. We've got people of South Africa here strong and young and muscular. You know, they can get into that industrial side, the industrial footprint. They're not that attuned at this stage to the sophistication of jewelry, you know, and diamonds and things like that. You know, that'll come later. So let's look at the what South Africa needs at the moment and start preparing the legislative framework. The administration has got to get slick. Make yourself the slickest administration, the slickest legislative framework in the world, and you're going to get a lot of spin-off.
Now, his core strategy is beneficiation. What is government doing in that regard?
Well, the government has got the strategy coming up. They see beneficiation as, you know, adding value to metals and minerals. That is a good thing. They've picked up on some of the metals and minerals they want to go for. You know, they've spoken about iron ore, manganese, etc., chrome. So they're starting to strategize, and they have said they'll have the strategy by the end of the year. Well, we've heard that before.
It's almost the end of the year.
I mean, it's like a long playing record, you know. We're going to have it. We're going to have it. We're going to have it. You know, where is the strategy? And let's not get too complicated with this thing. You know, let's allow a bit of spontaneous development by just having a strong legislative backbone and then intervening. And when you do intervene in a business-like manner, in a good business-like manner. So you incent business to actually invest their hard-earned cash into this. But they've got to come to the party not only with a legislative framework, railways, they've got to give it to us, energy, electricity, water, you know, and if they can do it with the private sector, let them do it. Why have we not had the first independent power producer? I mean, what's stopping that? Their own tardiness, the government tardiness. We need that independent power producer to come through. They're willing, the private sector, to partner in many ways. Let's do that while Eskom builds these bigger power stations, you know. I still believe in the mega projects, you know. These mega projects can have tremendous spin-off. If you go down to Richards Bay and you see the spin-off that those big projects have had under our era, we used to have a tax write-off under 37E of the Income Tax Act, which you could accelerate the capital invested. You could write it off in an accelerated fashion. You know, out of that we got the expansion of the BHP Billiton's smelter down in Richards Bay. We got Saldanha. We got a lot of things. You know, that was quite a drastic intervention. Maybe you don't even need something as strong as that, but you need someone to say, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and this is the period in which you can be sure this vision will be firmly in place. And I'm sure a lot will come out of that.
Now, Dr. Abedian says that the best case study of mining beneficiation is our own country from 110 years ago.
Exactly, we're sitting on it. You and I are sitting on a beneficiation story. We're only here on the 4th floor of Bedford Centre because of what people did 120 years ago in Johannesburg with gold. And they didn't have anyone, any big government saying, you know, this is your vision. And this was spontaneous development. And look what we got. You imagine if you try and direct it a bit more, what you can get. I mean, this is a beneficiation story here, Ekurhuleni, where we are. Johannesburg, the city of gold, around here is a beneficiation story. This is sustainable development here in front of your eyes. What did we get out of that gold? We not only got holes in the ground, we got banks, we got insurance companies, we got 2 great universities and technical colleges, we got industry. We had a massive Wadeville here that used to be thumping. It was probably the biggest industrial area in sub-Saharan Africa, if not Africa. This was a massive, thriving industrial footprint which is shrinking and nobody's doing anything about it. And so we can go back to that. That's a case study. We don't have to go to the Harvard Business Review for this case study. We've got it right here. We see it. And we're saying that we're in a better position than those pioneers were, 120 years ago.
We've got everything.
We have not only got more gold in the ground than we've mined so far. So in other words, we haven't mined all our gold.
Wow.
And they're now using technology to get to it, which will make it a different, a far more payable proposition, because it'll be rock around the clock, not in Bill Haley style, but in actual working on that mining continuously, because it'll be largely automated, because people can't really work 5 kilometers down. And we've got some of the biggest companies in the world, General Electric, 3M, Schlumberger, working with AngloGold Ashanti on how to get that gold from depth. And then we've got platinum,
And manganese.
and we've got manganese, and we've got chrome. And, we're not even talking energy coal when we talk this 18 trillion rands worth. We've got coke and coal. We've got a whole lot of metals and minerals at our disposal, which the pioneers weren't looking at. And we know we've got a 100-year horizon of mining, because we know that the world will probably consume, more metals and minerals as they urbanize. India urbanizes, China urbanizes, and Vietnam urbanizes, and all the other things happen. Everybody gets a new washing machine and a stove and a car. All this urbanization, is going to probably consume more metals and minerals in the next 30 years than we've mined since the beginning of time. So that's the sort of outlook in the world for the demand. Now, we've got those metals and minerals. We can supply them. Let's do it in an efficient way.
Now, finally, he also believes that mining and managing the environment at the same time is a job-generating beneficiation. Can you explain that?
Look at that. We can throw some innovation in. Don't do it the same as you did it 120 years ago. Why don't you mine and rehabilitate the environment simultaneously? You get joint production, and you get amplification of jobs. And you see to an environmental need, because people do not want mining in their backyard. They all want the metals and minerals. They do want the cell phones with the copper in and all the other things in it. They do want to drive their car with all the steel in and everything else, but they don't like mining. So why not make mining an environmentally acceptable pursuit with a lot of social development around it? I've seen the social development. You go to Kumba Iron Ore and you see these nursery schools that they set up in Sishan. I mean, gee whiz, they are really good for these young kids. I mean, I went down to BHP Billiton's aluminium smelter down at Richards Bay, and the early childhood development that they are financing there has to be seen, to be beheld. And there you see the full democratics of South Africa. You see black kids, you see white kids, you see Indian kids, you see colored kids running around there. And they're all benefiting early childhood development. How important is that? They're getting exposed to science. We went into the University of Zululand's early childhood development laboratory down there, and we saw the fantastic work that's being done, that you actually want to go down there, because what they're showing those young kids, I could learn from. They're saying, kids, you live in Richards Bay, you pass the smelter every day. This is how the smelter works. And you get such a wonderful explanation, and you're climbing up and down stairs and looking at the pictures that these kids are exposed to, and they say, well, Richards Bay Minerals is down the road. This is how it works. So they not only tell them about general science, but they give them exposure to what's happening around them in nice big pictures and a good explanation. So I think that there is spin-off. When you get these very big multinational mines, the money that they spend on corporate social investment and community development would be big to any other company. It would be huge because it's millions of rand. It is small change. It is absolute pittance when you're dealing with a giant like that. It is nothing, you know, and they can pour that in and make sure that, you know, the people get developed.
Well, there's so much to look forward to. Thank you, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insights into what's happening in the mining world.